May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, David Silva, who first came to Tassajara, I figure late 1950s, early 1960s with his parents. So he remembered the road. And later he came back as a student in 1971 at the last practice period during Shunryu Suzuki's life. And anyway, he's got an interesting trajectory there. He was the only really trained firefighter. He'd worked for the Forest Service, I think in the summers when he was a high school student. And he was helpful in that way there. And he's such an outdoors guy. Like, he's just always hiking all over. We'll talk about that some. Beautiful photography. Check out David Silva photography.com and David Silva on Flickr. Anyway, so look, as soon as we've had our pause to meditate, let's give him a call and we'll see what happens. Listen, toward the end, I don't know what it is. There's some sort of sound. Either he's doing it and doesn't realize it, or it's interference. And I get rid of a lot of it, but I leave some of it at the end. I don't know, it's all sort of scratchy. It's like he's walking around with cornflakes in his pockets. Anyway, I got rid of a lot of it. But right at the end, I thought, well, why don't I share this? So that was a little time-consuming. But it was only toward the end of the whole thing that started happening. I didn't know why. But no matter. So when you hear the sound of the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're through, ready to come back, hit unpause. We'll hit the bell to end the meditation, and we'll get going with David Silva.
Hey, David.
Hi there. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, indeed.
I don't spend much time on my cell phone talking, so I'm never sure if it works.
Well, you've passed the test.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited to talk to you, David.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has. It really has. Yes.
I'm very impressed with your posts on Facebook. My gosh, man, you really spend a lot of time getting out into the wilderness and different places. You take great pictures.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I enjoy it. It's one of my great loves.
Well, obviously, right. So, so what are you up to right now?
So Linda and I sort of live in two places these days. We actually kind of live in three places, but We live in Oakland. That's where I've lived ever since I left Zen Center in the late 80s. And then we bought a place up in Auburn, California, which is where I am right now. And for 15 years or so, we just rented it. We had one renter, and we rented it out. And then one of those people's parents died, and so they went off to the East Coast to live in the house their parents left. And we sort of had to decide what we were going to do with this place. We'd originally bought it to retire, but when you plan that far ahead, when it comes to the actual time, it doesn't always work out the way you think it was going to.
Yeah.
And the house needed a lot of work, and we kind of debated. So first we just decided to start repairing it a little bit. And in the process of doing that, we kind of remodeled it more than I thought we were going to personally. And after we did that, we decided, well, let's just live in it for a while. And so now we actually, spend a fair amount of time here. So I tell people we spend about a third of the time in Auburn, a third of the time in Oakland, and a third of the time on the road, which is basically camping and hiking, visiting my 96-year-old mother in Monterey, seeing the grandkids kind of thing.
Wow. So where was the last place you went?
Well, so currently I'm sitting actually on the deck at Auburn, and some loud mechanical noise is starting up. So let me know if you can hear that, and I'll just move inside. So all
right.
And I just
I can't hear it. Let me see
good.
if I can hear it. Wait a minute. No, it's not picking it up.
Great, glad to hear it. We just came out of Tahoe National Forest, where we just did a 4-day backpack trip. We just came out yesterday. And before that, we were here for a few days. And before that, we were in Auburn in Oakland, for probably about a week. And actually, during that week, I saw Rick Levine and Francis. During that week,
they
had a political fundraiser at their house that we went to. And going back further than that, I can't remember where I've been.
Yeah. Well, I can a little bit. One thing is, living in Auburn, you're much closer to the Sierras and the Tahoe area and all that. Sterling Bennell got a place there and lived there for years. Yeah, and he was a real nature man. I first heard the word ecology from him back in 67 at Tassajara.
Yeah. He lived up here, huh?
Yeah, he had a home. He lived with his wife after Kathy Bennell, his wife, maybe Diane. It's been a while. And, they had some kids, and he bought a house with a swimming pool, so he could turn it into I don't know. I think that was shrimp and who knows what he had in there. Well, you wouldn't want to go swimming. He probably did, and then he was having everybody use the toilet in a bathtub in the garage, and it was composting it and using worms to compost it. And it was and he picked up a big handful, put it right in my face. He said, "See, it smells sweet." And he had a falcon that went hunting for him there and in Oakland. Anyway, enough about Sterling.
The little bit I remember of him is he was a very unusual character.
Oh yeah, he was something. My God.
Was he a practicing student at Zen Center, or was he just one of those interesting people that was attracted to Zen Center?
Somewhere between the two.
Got it.
I think he knew Zen Center through Yvonne, There's an interview with him on Q.com.
Yeah.
He had trouble sitting, but he, if you go to his page on Q.com, it also links to things he's written and stuff. He wrote for this, huh?
Yeah, thanks for the tip.
Yeah, he wrote for Scientific American. He wrote a pretty well-known article on what would they call those fish in Death Valley, that live in the very, very salty water that's coming down that creek.
I just visited those. Puffish.
Pupfish,
I was just there this spring, actually, in Death Valley, and visited those very fish.
Yeah. I've been there a few times. It's neat, and they have the Forest Service, or the Park Service has the little wooden walkways where you can go up that creek.
Very quaint, very cute, those walkways.
Yeah, that's cool.
I wanted to say about Sterling. Not too long ago, a bunch of us had a discussion on Facebook about a line from a Philip Whalen poem that people thought might have been referencing Sterling Bennell, actually.
What did it say?
Well, I cannot remember. That's that's going to be impossible.
Send me an email. Send me an email.
Yeah, I might need to be able to find it again. But yes, I will. But I think we all figured Philip never met Sterling Bennell. It just seemed like not possible.
Oh no, it would have been quite possible.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I'll make a note to that. I don't even remember how it all arose. Whether I started the discussion, wherever I found the quote, I don't know. But I'm going to make a note, and I'll see what I can find.
Yeah, and I can dig up some stuff. There's some things coming to mind. People Sterling knew. It's possible. Anyway, yeah, it's cool. All right, that was a little aside there. Oh, so you can't remember where else you've been. You were in Alaska. You were in the Alaskan wilderness.
Yeah.
That was
right. Thanks.
That was recently.
Yeah, that was very recent, actually.
What did you all take turn? Like, there's a picture of you way, way down. Or you said it's me or David. What's your wife's name again?
Linda, yeah.
Linda, right. Or maybe that was Linda down there. You remember that picture? It was a long way away.
Yeah, I took a picture of Linda. She was climbing up the edge of the glacier, and I took a picture looking up at her. I think that's the one you mean, maybe.
Well, that's one. There's another one where the photographer, I suppose you, is way up high and down, going down toward a glacier, but it's lower. It's like a lake, down there.
Yeah.
She's walking down toward it, a long way away.
Yeah.
Half a mile or something.
Well, it probably has something to do with the perspective of the lens or something, but probably wasn't that far away.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it might have something to do with the perspective of my memory. Anyway, so where'd you go in Alaska, and what was that about, and how long were you there, and what was it like?
I think that we were there maybe about 2.5 weeks, and we spent about 5 days in Juneau, and then we flew up to Anchorage, and we did this little loop where we went down the Kenai Peninsula down to Seward, and we came back up.
How did you go?
We went. We flew to Juneau, then we flew to Anchorage, and then we did a driving loop back to Anchorage. We did a car loop. Yeah, and then we took a couple of ferries. We did the Kenai Peninsula and then down to Seward up to Whittier. Whittier's a fascinating little place. Took a ferry over to Valdez, a famous, oil tanker spill. And then we drove up this mountain range that actually I don't remember the name of. And then we just went back down to Anchorage. We did a combination of camping and staying in cottages or motels or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of hiking. We didn't do any backpacking. It's just too big, Anchorage is, Alaska is just too big. You could walk for a day and the scenery is not going to change in any way whatsoever. Even people driving down the road say, you're driving down the road and you just kind of think you're not moving because everything kind of stays the same. And you look down and you're going, oh my God, I'm going 70 miles an hour. Sure, I guess maybe I should go a little slower.
Well, in what way does it look the same? What does it look like?
It's, mostly it's a lot of trees, a whole lot of trees. But the highlight of our Alaska trip were glaciers. So there's a lot of glaciers in Alaska, and we visited at least 6 of them. We walked on one. I think that's what that photograph you're talking about is. We got up super close and personal on boat trips to a couple of others. Couple of others we just kind of hiked up close to them. So that part isn't all the same, though. I was a little worried when I posted my photographs that people just get tired of looking at pictures of glaciers. But the glaciers are all quite unique and different. But when you're driving one place to another, there's a whole lot of forest. A whole lot of forest. And big snow-capped mountains, too.
Did you observe anything or learn anything about the glaciers, the condition of them? Are they receding or whatever?
Almost all glaciers are receding. Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
Did you have
There's a few.
Go on.
Few that aren't. There's a few that aren't, but the majority of them are. Like we visited the Columbia Glacier, and at one point, the boat skipper said, "This is where the glacier was 25 years ago, and it's 14 miles away now. 14 miles.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't see it, Throughout the time Linda and I have been together, we have visited a number of glaciers, and we've had the experience where we could actually, very early in our relationship, we went to the Athabasca in a big ice field up in Canada, in British Columbia. And then we went back not too long ago, but maybe 5-6 years ago, and stood at the spot where the glacier was when we visited it ourselves in our relationship. And you could barely see the glacier anymore. So it's we've had some very real experiences about receding glaciers now.
I know there's this one book, I haven't read it, but what's it called? The End Device? Where a guy did a study on what would happen or what will happen when there's no more ice cap and glaciers. And he saw that factor alone as just being devastating to civilization.
Right.
He was a real doomer. He was like, he was on the earth we're in hospice end of things.
I mean, I just to say, I'm a kind of a believer of that particular view, meaning I think it's Joanne Macy that talks about how to live with climate change, and that it is the same way you would live in hospice with a dying patient, a dying person.
Yeah.
I would say that for me, it's one of the biggest questions in my life. How do I live on a planet that I am almost certain is dying, and does it mean to be living at a time? Because the generation, the time I grew up in, when we had Earth Day came into effect, ecology came into effect, and there was so much optimism about saving the world.
Right.
And then to know that it's probably not possible to save the world, actually. And I think we humans how to live with the fact that humans are the most destructive force on the planet in geological time since the Ice Age. That humans are the ruin of the planet. It's a fascinating time to live.
Since the Ice Age, I think that's an overly what would you say, kind appraisal of it. I'd say since the I'd say in all history, because
Right.
We're on a trajectory to destroy life on Earth, and many scientists say we're not going to do that, and they're much more positive. But anyway, it's part of the discussion. The meteorite that hit 65 million years ago or whatever, I think is the only thing that could compare to it. And personally, I just can't help but think, well, we'll probably come out of it. But it's like maybe one side of my brain is a doomer, and the other side says, well, you don't really know what's going to happen, and people are resourceful, and maybe, like Lovelock just died, right? On his 103rd birthday, like 5 days ago or something.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He created the idea of Gaia, how everything on the earth is interconnected and the earth is self-regulating. And then he came to feel that we were deregulating the system later on, and wrote The Revenge of Gaia. And then his last book was Rough Ride into the Future. He said, not long ago, I would say in the last 5-10 years, he said he thought life was in its last 1%. But the last 1% of its lifetime on Earth, life. Now, he wasn't saying the human race.
Life, all of life.
Yeah.
Everything that we think of and conceive of as life.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I don't think it has to be that way. I mean, we'll see what happens. I just, I posted something. I have a cute nonsense blog. So, there was an article in BBC on people fighting against the doomers and all that are, movements to say, hey, that's not really where the science is at. And, but it didn't have any convincing arguments. It talked to one woman who's a young woman who's trying to counter the doomer thing. And the example she gave, of course, it was very brief, and I didn't go into it deeply, was that an email from somebody that said she's giving up because we're all going to be underwater anyway. Well, that's ignorant. The water isn't the problem; it's the heat.
Right. So it's such a fine line to walk, and people like you and people like me are doing it all the time. I don't walk around in a state of gloom by any means.
I don't either.
Exactly. I mean, a few times a day I do. If I look at the news, like who was it? Oh, do you read Heather Cox Richardson, the woman she has a daily blog about the state of the nation, and she posted that Exxon they said Exxon made $112 billion of profit in the last quarter. 3 months. And so when I read stuff like that, I go into a little bit of like a slump. But and then I go off and I'll spend a week in this high Sierra, and won't even think about it. I'll just be in total state of like bliss. So
Yeah. I think having a sense of there being a bigger picture, that, like looking at it from a Hindu point of view, or I don't know, many points of view. You'd say, well, planets come and go. Our life on
exactly.
planets comes and goes, just like people
Yeah.
are born and die. We're part of an enormous picture that, to me, Lovelock's thing about the Earth being an interconnected, self-regulating being, I think the whole universe is,
Right.
and
Right.
even that is probably, of course, that's very limited because we're just completely ignorant. We don't know anything, and we can't,
Exactly.
we haven't.
Yeah.
And so basically, I feel we're all ultimately in good hands. I mean, it's sad to see the Earth dying and everything, but I see these like serious, like more like New Age doomer stuff, talking about sadness, living with grief. I don't have any of that. But I've been into that the human race is committing suicide since the 70s. Actually, in high school, I can go back to things. I've always sort of seen that. I mean, Rachel Carson's Rachel Carson's The Silent Spring came out. God, I can't even remember.
Right.
60s.
Right.
And people attacked her. The thing about the oil companies, hiring very, very good PR people to create climate change denial and all that. And they've been very successful at it. That a lot of that, to me, it has to do with the sort of inertia of the money system. I see the money system as being like artificial life form. That and there's nobody in charge. It's sort of out of control, and so it will do anything to keep alive and to grow, to keep growing. And well, anyway, you sort of see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, exactly. And things could get pretty dismal if we keep doing that. So I'm right with you. I mean, obviously the politicians are bought off by the money machine, and the Supreme Court now is totally on the side of the money machine. And we've actually said it way back in the 60s, that capitalism makes money God, and it gets anything it wants. So it just keeps going in.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I'd say capitalism, the way it's structured, especially in America. But well, all right. Now that we've got that out of the way, it's another minor topic. Sterling Bennell, destruction of life on Earth. All right.
I mean, is Sterling still alive?
No. Yeah, I've got a page on him on Q.com too.
Thanks. I will definitely. I just need to apologize ahead of time, is that I really don't spend enough time on your website. So
I don't spend time on anything but my work. I just got a list of things people send me to see and hear and read. When I have time off, I just like to walk, swim, look at the garden. But I do keep up with something. I avoid news as much as I can, but I let enough in to sort of know what's happening. I read science news. Anyway, all right, David.
Hey.
So, now here's what I remember about you. Your father was in the Forest Service. Am I right?
No.
Something like that.
Yeah. No, I don't know where that.
You were.
I was. Yes.
Okay.
I was. Yes.
There was somebody else whose father was in the Forest. You were in the Forest.
Yeah, I don't know who that would be. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Three summers out of high school, I worked for California Division of Forestry that's also now known as CAL FIRE.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
And I also studied forestry, sort of. You know, my parents didn't give me a lot of direction. God bless their souls. Well, my mom's still alive, but hopefully she won't be listening to this. Uh, but when, with time to go to junior college after high school, and they said declare your major, I thought, I was, had to fill out this form. I said, well, I like to camp a lot. Maybe I'll be forestry. And so I wrote it down. So I was a forestry major for 3 years in college, which meant the first 2 years of college, I took the same science courses as pre-med people did, people who were going to become doctors, which is actually very hard work, especially since I was smoking a lot of pot and taking a lot of psychedelics. And then I went up to Humboldt State and I did real forestry for like a year. And then I dropped out, and then I actually started sitting zazen. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's my forestry history.
Mm. So, what led you to sitting zazen?
I'd, probably most likely been reading some kind of Buddhist type stuff. Definitely, all of us that came out of the eras were reading Alan Watts. And who knows what else. And then I spent the summer picking crops up in Oregon. Came back down to Monterey.
Doing what in Oregon?
Picking crops.
Oh, wow.
Beans and pears.
And wait a minute, how old were you then?
I was 20.
So you were out of high school, you were in college.
Maybe 20, no, 21, 22 maybe. Yes. And 21, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was born in 1949, so we could do the math.
Yeah.
And so came down to Monterey, visited friends, and this friend of mine, Steve Fox, we used to just do a lot of stuff with him, a lot of playful stuff, go down Big Sur.
When you say we, who's we?
Oh, Margaret. So Margaret Walter, who I was married to, and went to Tassajara with, actually.
I forgot that.
Yeah. Her father was in the forestry. Yes, he was a lifetime in the California Division of Forestry.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And so, we contacted Steve because we're down in Monterey, and he said, oh, I'm going to go sit zazen. You want to come? And we said, yeah, sure, whatever. If that's what you're doing, we'll come along. And he took us to Gene Ross's little apartment in Carmel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
The rest is history.
Yeah. So, Gene, early Suzuki student, very early.
Yeah.
More than very early, like from the very first.
Yeah.
Like could have been the first week he arrived in America. Had a Zendo there in Carmel. Yeah.
Yeah, she met Suzuki Roshi through what's now CIIS, but it was called the Institute of Asian Studies, maybe?
No, American Academy of Asian Studies.
Thanks.
And a teacher there, Kazumitsu Kato, who was the priest taking care of Zen Center when Suzuki Rise. Kato took him there to a class.
That's it, and that's where Gene met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Betty.
Yes.
Betty Warren and Della Gertz.
That's right. Yeah.
And the three of them were in the class, and he had everybody sit, and they were just sitting on the floor. And, he didn't say anything. He just showed him zazen, and he said, well, I do that in the mornings, and they came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many variations of that story, right? So many people heard that, so many of the beats heard there was a Zen master in Japantown, and they all came knocking at the door, and that was always the famous line: "I sit zazen at 5 a.m.
That's right.
Please come."
That's right. I think Bill McNeil actually came before any of them, but it was very early on. That's exactly how Bill McNeil got there. He heard that, and he was the most. He was the the number one student for like the first 59 and 60, first 2 years. And then other things happen. So you started sitting with Gene, and So,
and
how did and did you start living there, or
living where?
in Monterey?
Oh yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's really too long ago to remember how things actually happened. Like how did I get from A to B or B to C? That liminal space that connects actual events. One really knows how, but somehow, I guess I decided to drop out of college, which wasn't doing a whole lot for me, and I worked in a sports coat factory in Monterey, right there by the airport.
Oh,
and saved up some money, and Margaret and I both went to Tassajara. We did things so fast in those days. So I probably sat with Gene 1 year before I actually went to Tassajara, which means I applied for Tassajara even before that. So to say that I was green would be an understatement.
And so when did you first go to Tassajara?
So first time I think I ever was at Tassajara was sometime maybe in grade school.
Oh, goodness.
My father drove us all down that road, God knows how, because we had really bad cars.
You're talking in the 50s?
Yeah. Could have been early 60s. I don't know.
So when the
year.
Becks owned it, most likely.
Yeah. And most likely our car overheated, and they probably gave us some water and turned us around and said goodbye. and we were gone. That's probably the first time I actually visited Tassajara. The next time was probably going into the hot tubs late at night.
Where sneaking in.
Exactly. The guy I just mentioned that took us to sit zazen, he was a real hot springs fanatic. So we would go down to Esalen in the middle of the night. We would go down to Tassajara in the middle of the night. And we were super quiet, super respectful, everything. We did nothing raucous or anything like that. We just soaked in the tubs.
Yeah. People were good. People were good who did that. There was really, I can't remember any abuse. Incidentally, when I was living out there studying Japanese, I did that.
Oh, cool. That's when you were a student already.
Oh, yeah. I'd been.
Oh, yeah.
That was 69, and I've been living there since winter of 67.
Yeah. And you were sitting with Gene at that time.
No. Oh. Yeah, when I was out there, I would go sit with Gene.
You
That's
were.
true.
You did. Yeah.
Indeed.
So the next time I went to Tassajara was the summer of 71. Margaret and I went probably for a long weekend and just were guest students for maybe 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm. What do you remember about it?
I remember I was in the kitchen washing dishes, and I was asking about, like, how should I do it? Should I, and it was sort of like, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. it's just that's the one thing really stood out. Was, I mean, I had worked as a professional dishwasher myself, so I knew there was right ways to wash dishes, but they were very laissez-faire about how clean the dishes were.
Well, I think that has to do with who you talk to.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah. It was a
you
very
could have
small
talked to
slice.
somebody else who was, you know, just very particular, you know.
Yeah. But that's probably all I remember about that. Oh, no, that was after. So the next time I went to Tassajara was late that summer. And this has always been, by the way, I did read the interview you did with me 8 years ago today to refresh my memory.
8 years ago?
Yeah.
No, longer than that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it had to be longer than that.
It was more like 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, we went down at the end of the summer for reasons I have no idea. And set Tongariro, instead of going, you know, at the very beginning of the practice period, sitting Tongariro with everybody else. And I have no idea how that happened, like how that decision get made. Yeah, but it's what we did. So just Margaret and I sat Tongariro all by ourselves. You know what? And so that's next time. That's my first actual real contact with Zen Center, actually. At that point, I sat Zazen maybe 3 times a week in Jean's living room. No Kisaku, no Oryoki, no Buddha drum, no no massive, you know, ritual, no sessions, no nothing. All we ever did was chant the Heart Sutra. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's what she was used to.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, when I came to Zen Center, the only chant, well, there were 2. There was the Heart Sutra 3 times in the morning, just running each one straight into the other, getting faster and faster. It was absolutely wonderful. That was morning service. And during a session or something, there'd be I guess, afternoon, evening one. I can't remember. But then we chanted the robe chant at the end of Zazen, and nobody knew what it meant. Daizage Dabuku, you know.
Yeah.
That was it, and I loved it. And I still think, you know, that was the high point of chanting for me.
Right.
Just keep adding things, you know.
Yeah.
And things with a lot of words you got to think about and stuff. Did you run into Suzuki Roshi at any point?
So, David, I only saw Suzuki Roshi once in my life.
Yeah?
And that was at the Mountain Seat ceremony. That's my only
for Richard Baker.
contact.
For Richard Baker.
Yes.
Well, there you are. That was transmission of mind to mind.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that ceremony?
I remember weeping a lot.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
why was that?
I have no idea. And even then I couldn't say why, because I wasn't then and never have been a person to weep. Except, so I've had, it's happened twice before to me, and both times were in the presence of teachers and teaching. So I think we have talked before about my year of chemo. I went to a couple of different spiritual people. One is a woman named Gangaji, and the other was a guy named Adyashanti.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with both of them.
Yeah, we've talked about them before in the past.
Oh, you were, yeah. We'll get into that. Go on, keep going.
Yeah. Well, with them both, I had a singular experience also of just well, you could say sobbing, for no reason, out of the blue.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh.
So whatever happened, with Suzuki Roshi was probably something in the same realm.
Uh-huh. With, I'd say there's the additional factor with him. He was very clearly dying and had very little time left.
Yeah, and there were a lot of other people weeping.
That's
that day
right.
also.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So you set that Tongariro. Did you then stay on?
Yeah. Because that's, what you do after you sit Tongariro. But,
and then you stayed for the fall practice period?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That was. I think you were the director.
No, I was the assistant. Dan was the director. I was the assistant director.
Bill Kwong was Shuso.
Yeah.
I told the story when you interviewed me 20 years ago or so.
Go on.
Because I didn't know anything about sashins,
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know back in those days. This was the last time they ever did this. At the end of the summer, they did a sashin. That was the last time they ever did it. But I was like, "Are you kidding me? I just had 5 days of Tongariro, and like a week later, you're going to sit a 7-day sashin? It's like, forget it." And I actually said, maybe could I just leave for that week? This is how little I knew about how the place ran. Because I thought this is something just for the people who spent the summer there, and that's not me. So clearly it would be okay for me to leave for a week and come back again. But no, that was not like, okay, they weren't going to do that. So that was rough. But the good news is that they assigned Dan Welsh to keep an eye on me.
Is that right?
And so, yeah. And so I got to have this, I got to meet Dan and have a really great experience with him. And I worked with him every work period. We worked together up at the gatehouse, the old gatehouse. We were doing some stonework up there, and that was so super. That all of a sudden I got to have this wonderful experience with him.
He might have assigned himself to do that with you, unless you know differently. That's what I
have no idea. Yeah,
Doesn't sound like
I don't know.
that. I don't remember people being assigned to help people. That's Dan. Dan's very thoughtful, attentive, and paid attention to you.
Yeah. Well, it warmed my heart to Dan Welsh very much so, and I still feel quite wonderful about him. Do you know where the heck he is?
Santa Fe.
Yeah, I figured that's where he is. He's a hard guy to find, right? He's not on the internet anywhere.
Oh no, he didn't. If somebody wants to get hold of Dan, I have to write him and ask if he will. And he has a nice life there. He's making pizzas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I leave him alone, too. But he's actually very friendly and everything's fine. Chuck Hoy got together, who's Charles Hoy, got together with him a couple of years ago. I connected them. And that was really great. They had dinners, sent me pictures. But Dan sent me pictures of, I told him, his specialty there is making pizza, and not like tomato pizza. He only uses tomatoes for kids' pizzas, gourmet pizzas, and he would cater, not really because he needed the money, but to help him out. He'd cater events for people in Santa Fe. And he sent me pictures. I told him that Katrinka makes except for his, makes the best pizzas in the world. And in fact, we just had some last night. And we don't eat.
Oh, my God.
Huh?
You have pizza in Bali? Wow.
I have anything
Great.
here. There's everything here. She makes them, I said.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, there's pizza places, although I never eat pizza. I never go out and eat pizza. Uh, and hers, she uses pita bread. They're very small. And she puts like leftover vegetables on top of, like we had some sharp cheddar last night. And then we have one each and we eat half of it and save the other half for lunch on the next day or the day after. But anyway, so he sent
Dan
me,
have?
huh?
Does he have his own? Does he own the pizza place or just the cook?
No,
there?
he never had a place.
Yeah.
He would cater.
Got it.
He would do stuff at home, or actually he would bring whatever to the place a lot and make them there. But yeah, and he sent me pictures of about 5 or 6 pizzas he made. They were gorgeous, gorgeous, and original, unique. Anyway, so yeah, Dan,
So there I was.
yeah, go on.
So, yeah, that was a fall practice period, 1971, and you were the assistant director. And I don't really know when you and I kind of, I don't remember you at all. I don't know if we had any much contact or anything. Yeah, and then went to the next practice period. That was when Dan was Chuseau, and stayed on for the summer. And I think you were director then. I think you were the director
No.
that summer.
No,
No, sorry. Okay, too bad.
that year I was.
Oh, Mel.
Yeah,
No?
Mel was I was work leader in the city. I didn't get
it
back
was
till
Mel.
74.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, it was. I remember now. It was Mel. Yeah.
yeah,
So I don't really know when our paths crossed exactly.
yeah. I certainly remember you.
Sure.
But one thing I remember about you is, and I remember this in 71 too, is that you were helpful with fire suppression and that system and setting it up, and, advising on that.
Well, I think I was the only person down at Zen Center that had any firefighting experience, so it just
Right.
fell on me,
Right.
this 22-year-old kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was the fire marshal that summer.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, indeed. I have a whole section on fire, the history of fire in Tassajara. It's extensive.
Oh yeah. By the way, I did see you recently. But I wasn't on the live Zoom, but I watched Diane Renshaw's presentation after the fact.
Right.
So I got to see and hear you and hear your contributions to that. So that was fun.
Oh, yeah. I want to do a podcast with her. I like what she's doing. And David Rogers. See, David Rogers knows more than anybody. So you were at Tassajara at those times, but were you at anywhere else in the San Francisco Zen Center realm?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, you've talked about when you were at Tassajara. All right. So what happened next?
Oh yes, thank you. So I might just give you a very quick overview here, and then we can go back and touch on any pieces.
Yeah.
After I spent 1 year there. After that summer, I went back to Monterey and Pacific Grove, where Katagiri had now left Zen Center and was the resident teacher for a very small group of students, some of whom had been sitting with Jean, and some of whom had left Tassajara actually to study with Katagiri. So for a year, I practiced in Sotoraksu and did Jukai with Katagiri.
Oh, neat.
During that time, though, I still did things with Zen Center. Winter interim, I went down for all of winter interim. And then about half of the summer, I went down and worked in the kitchen. My memory is that was kind of a traumatic summer in the kitchen. I think the Tenzo got kicked out for smoking pot or something. I'm not sure if that's exactly.
No.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Really? Well, 72? Anyway, wait a minute.
All I know is it was supposedly a traumatic time. Things were not going well in the kitchen, and they were happy to have me there.
Oh, all right. Now this is the summer of 72?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I will be thinking about that. I certainly don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Well, we all make up some certain stories, or some little piece of information gets stuck in our brain, and then we start making a story with it. So yeah, I don't know.
I think if anybody had been kicked out for smoking pot, I know it. And I don't think he'd have done it. He was pretty tolerant about a lot of stuff. And then really nitpicky about other things.
Well, anyway, so I did go down for maybe about half the summer. And then after that, I had wanted to go. Oh, also during that year, I went to Green Gulch Farm. Yeah. And I don't remember how long I was there. It was, in the very, very early days. And
first year, 72.
Yeah. So maybe I was there for a month. I don't really remember. And I worked with Mark Alexander, and so then my memory is that I wanted to, now that Katagiri was leaving Monterey, I wanted to go live at Green Gulch Farm. But that then Mark Alexander called me and basically said, well, we don't really have something for you at Green Gulch Farm right now, but we'd like you to come to City Center. This is just the story I have in my head. And
sounds right.
And I went to City Center to bake bread.
And what? Oh, that's very interesting. What year was that? Is that still 72?
That would be that's the fall of 73, I think.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the fall of 73.
Yeah. Then I was at Green Gulch then, 73.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
And you were baking bread there. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I stayed at City Center for, I think, about 6 years, but it might have been a little less.
Is that right? And, wow.
Yeah. So
wait a minute. Are you still with Margaret? Was that her name, Margaret?
No, Margaret left, and I broke up at Tassajara. After the first practice period, she went to Boulder with some woman who I think's name was Bonnie, but I'm not sure.
Bonnie Miller.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and, Bonnie Miller went to Boulder then. And Bonnie Miller was at Tassajara then, and she became a student at Trungpa's.
Yeah. So Margaret sort of followed Bonnie to Colorado. Didn't become a student at Trungpa's, but Margaret went to Colorado, and I stayed at Tassajara. And then we did the paperwork, to finalize our divorce a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just curious, where is she now?
She lives in Eugene. She just moved there in the last year or so to be close to her grandkids. And before that, she was living for a very long time in the town of Sonora, California. If you take Highway 108 through Manteca, go through the Central Valley, you hit the little foothill town of Sonora, where she was married and had kids.
Yeah, and you're still in touch somewhat, or you wouldn't know that.
Yeah, pretty much just Facebook, but, we have significant... it's funny, whenever I use the word Facebook, I feel like it's a dirty word or something, but I have very meaningful relationships on Facebook. So, we find out about each other's life and stuff of that sort.
Yeah. Well, Facebook works for you. It works for me. It's no problem. I don't spend too much time on it. But it's basically a force for chaos and destruction.
Right. And at the least, distraction.
Yeah, at the least. Now, there've been a lot of terrible things happen. The governments change, mass, genocide, all sorts of shit has been associated with the ability of clever people learning how to manipulate large numbers of people with disinformation through Facebook.
Yeah.
And disinformation is more appealing than information. Mark Twain pointed that out when he said, a lie has traveled around the world while the truth is still tying its shoelaces.
Right. I have a very good friend whose daughter just started working for Facebook, and she's in something like the integrity division or something. I had dinner with her recently, and she still hasn't figured out what she's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Well, they make a lot of effort to try to be good, but anyway, it's difficult. Yeah. It's a difficult situation because, I think Russia just cut Facebook off, and I can certainly understand why they don't want, because it could undermine Putin with maybe not with disinformation, but with real information on what's happening in Ukraine. But anyway,
so I went to Zen Center, and I was by myself, so I was a baker, and then I became the buyer/purchasing agent. I took that job over from Bruce McAllister. And Bill Lane was the treasurer, I believe, at that time. And I did that for maybe a year or so, and then I was Fukaten. At
the assistant cook, right?
Yeah, right. And then
the assistant head cook, right?
I always thought of it just assistant cook. Nancy Sheldon was the Tenzo at the time.
Wait, Fukaten is the assistant to the Tenzo.
Yeah, right. It's assistant to the cook.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right, exactly. So not the assistant cook, the assistant to the cook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nancy Sheldon was the Tenzo. And then I guess I went to Tassajara again and was the guest cook.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came and was the
what year guest cook at Tassajara?
Yeah, it's a little. I just put like a year in there every time, 74. So, yeah, I don't know, the 76 maybe. And no, that seems too early. 77 maybe.
Uh-huh.
So the thing about it was the Marble Cone Fire, wasn't that 1977?
Yeah.
And I was so it had to be. Yeah, so it would have been the summer of 77. I was a guest cook at Tassajara. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fortunate.
Oh, why was that?
To have you there when there's a forest fire?
Then it would have been 76 because for the Marble Cone Fire, I was the manager of the Green Gulch Greengrocer with Neil Rubenking. And
wait a minute. That's 76?
No, that's 77. So guest cook
77. I'm sorry. 77.
Yeah.
Charlie was gone, huh?
Charlie took my place.
Oh, Charlie was after you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I trained Charlie. I don't know if he'd think of it that way.
Maybe I was before you, huh?
You were. You and Jim.
Jim.
Before me.
And Jim, let me tell you, Jim was the unsung hero. He was great. And I got all the credit. And but he was really good. And running that grocery store, we did everything together. And I tended to defer to him. He was a lot more stable than I was in some ways. But
you guys built that thing.
Well,
right?
I came from Tassajara to manage it. Dick didn't want me to leave Tassajara, but I insisted. He wanted me to continue being director. But I had to get out of there. I'd been there too much. It's like, so Michael Winger had run it for the first 2 weeks, and I got there, and it was Jim and me. And Jim was called the buyer, and I was the manager. And I said, "Good Lord, man, there's nothing on the shelves. We got to fill these shelves." He said, "Well, everything has to be approved by the store committee." I said, "Fuck the store committee. We're not going to pay any attention to that. What do you think there should be?" And then he really knew, and I followed him, and we went places, and, it was so great, man. Going to the produce mart, 3 a.m, 4 a.m, and the people we met, and all the different suppliers. And, he needed me to give him permission to blossom. It was great. So anyway, you took over
so
after us.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't really remember. I know that Neil and I were like you and Jim together, and I held down what I also considered primarily the buyer position. That is, I spent a lot of time driving around town, buying stuff for the store, but I also would buy stuff for Tassajara, Green Gulch Farm, and City Center.
Yeah.
So I was, I totally loved that job.
Yeah.
All the people you got to meet, everyone so fascinating and so completely unzen. And the produce terminal was the extreme of it all.
No kidding.
And I just used to love going down there. Big, huge semis pulled up all these docks, and I pull into this little teeny van, this itty bitty van. I'd pull up next to these huge, enormous trucks.
Right.
And I'd be walking around in my flip flops, and people would be calling out like, "Hey Zen, I got a deal for you today, Zen. Hey Zen."
Wow.
And I remember one of the crowning moments of glory was at one Christmas when do you remember? Oh shoot! Oh, I almost had his name, but anyway, he gave me like a fifth of scotch for Christmas. I thought, like, I have made it. I am in now.
That's really good. Yeah. There was a bar there. It was sort of an illegal bar or something. The guy that introduced Jim and me to it was an Italian-American young guy who had a produce store, just produce, downtown San Francisco. And he took us there, and he said, this place is run by Italians. He said, you put $100 bill on the hood of a car and nobody's going to touch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know what he did then? He grabbed an apple from something, and he dug a hole in it, and then he dug a hole at the top, and he got this little screen, and he put it in it, and he put some hashish in it. And we smoked hash there, and nobody gave a shit or paid any attention. That was quite illegal then. And I remember being in Zori, right? And there's these dollies coming by with giant iron wheels. And there was this guy I used to get stuff from. He was always gruff. And the last day I was there, I said, I I'm from the San Francisco Zen Center, and we're into mindfulness and everything. I want to tell you, I learned more about mindfulness here than I did at Zen, and that made him laugh.
Yeah. So it's funny. Historically, I don't really remember who showed me the ropes on that grocery store. I mean, I don't remember anyone taking me around like Jim, or he must have taken me around and introduced me to everybody or something like that.
Jim.
I just don't remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really glad I got that. I guess it was Neil Reuben King was left to kind of mind the store while I was about galvanizing about town buying everything that I needed to buy. And I'm really glad of the two jobs. That's the one I got. I just so happy I got that one.
Yeah. Do you remember Diane Goldschlag then? Now Diane. She would buy.
Sure.
She would buy her for the city center.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that we interfaced quite a bit. I mean, I of course know Diane, but I can't remember like when did I meet her or how did I know her. There's so many people at Zen Center. I don't actually have the specifics down. Like, what was our relationship exactly, or how did I know this person exactly?
Yeah.
So Diane falls into that category.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember her very well, and I don't remember the particulars.
Yeah. That was when we split up. When I left the grocery store, it's sort of part of it. We were taking a break. But so it was all amicable and everything, but we never got back together.
I think I was at Green Gulch for some reason. Is it possible when Clay was born?
73, October.
Oh,
no, Kelly, not Clay.
Kelly, yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah.
October 4th, 1973, above the kitchen in that room.
What was I doing there? Because, well, as far as I remember, I moved to Page Street in November of 73, to the best of my memory. But I don't know, what was I doing at Green Gulch when Kelly was born? But I have a memory of being there, and I have a memory of going out and having drinks with you afterwards. I don't know if that's true or not.
Oh, that very well could be. Yeah. Although I pretty much had to staying there. You mean maybe going down to the Pelican Inn?
Something like, I don't remember where we went. Yeah.
During the birth, I was like Diane's slave, and putting pressure on her back, and she was just giving orders, do this, do that. I couldn't get up to pee. I think it's the longest I went in my life without peeing. It went on hour after hour, and I couldn't, I was totally. It was like altered state of mind, and she was too, different types. That was a great experience. Loved it. So
Dave, do we have to think of our audience a little bit here? We've been talking for quite a while.
No.
Okay.
No.
Just thought I'd check in.
No, doesn't matter. So wait a minute. So, so there you are. You're in the grocery store. What's next?
So the next big jump is basically I leave Zen Center. Yeah. So that would have been about 1979 or something of that sort.
Why'd you do that?
Yeah, it's all a little cloudy. And there might be parts that I don't exactly want to go into on the air, so to speak.
Right.
But the largest motivation was I saw this was not going to be my life. I might have been just turning 30. I could see I wasn't going to stay with Zen Center. I wasn't going to become a priest. I should really seriously think of what am I going to do, when I grow up.
Yeah.
So that was the big motivation.
And what did you do?
I did two things. I went back to school. I went to San Francisco State and started taking undergraduate courses so that I could move in the direction of getting a master's degree in counseling or psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to Berkeley and went to work in a kind of French/Russian/vegetarian restaurant on College near
What was it called?
Ashby. Petrushka's.
Great address.
Yeah. So
what was it called?
Petrushka's.
Petrushka's.
Petrushka's. It's Russian. Petrushka's. I can't spell it for you. Sorry.
No, that's good.
Petrushka's. It's a Russian word.
Yeah.
And it was owned by three women. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do now. I needed to find a job or something like that. And on the bulletin board there in that little hallway by the bathrooms at Page Street, there was a little sign that said, looking for a Zen cook. And I said, well, that's me. So I called them up. And so the three women started this restaurant, and one of them was a student of Mel's at the Berkeley Zen Center.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the one, of the three of them, she was the one more in charge with the kitchen. And she really idealized Zen students, Zen cooking, anything Zen. And so I fit the bill for someone who had actually worked in a Zen Center kitchen. So I went to work there, actually.
Wait a minute. Was this Petrushka's?
Yeah, Petrushka's. I went to work there.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
I moved into this house that was the most amazing house up Claremont Canyon. I don't know if you can picture Claremont Canyon.
Yeah, I can, because my sister lives up on the top there.
Oh, yeah. I used to play tennis with your sister.
No kidding. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So about halfway up the canyon, the entire left side of that canyon is East Bay Regional Park, and some of the right is like housing and stuff like that. There's this house that sit on East Bay Regional Park land that belonged to East Bay Regional Park, and they rented it out. And these people that I met through Meg Goller.
Yeah.
She knew one of the women who had gotten this house, and they were looking for housemates, and they needed some more housemates. And so Meg told me about it. She said, "Oh, these people are looking for housemates. Why don't you go interview?" And so I interviewed there, and I like to tell a story. I think basically I came in as it's a stunning place to live. It's completely surrounded by vegetation and nature, and it's beautiful. And I just went in. I was just so casual about the whole thing. I remember just enjoying the interview and saying, "Well, good luck, guys. I hope you really find someone good." And so I think I got the position because I didn't pressure them at all. I didn't say, "Oh, I really want this. I really want that." I said, "Wow, cool place. I hope you guys find the right place." So they picked me, the right person. They picked me.
Good for them.
So I lived up there and met some really super great people. And in fact, and then Petrushka's was just down the hill. It was like 5 minutes down the hill or less. And I met some people. This really great guy, Doug Beaton, lived up there, and he worked in a halfway house in Union City. And I was, looking to go into the mental health field, so I started working in the halfway house. That kind of was one of the transitions into my working in community mental health. Yeah. And so then, because I know you're going to want to know what happens next, I really didn't have much to do with Zen Center.
Did you ever have any involvement with the Berkeley Zen Center?
No, no. One of the women who worked with me at Petrushka's. She was a student at the Berkeley Zendo, and I would occasionally go by. But most of my involvement in anything Zen became a little bit more on the social side from that point on.
Yeah.
So I never really. I kind of like dropped the whole practice thing. Yeah. Even though Zen still feels like 100% important in my life. Mm-hmm. I haven't been what you'd call a Zen practitioner since I left Zen Center, really. Yeah, but I had a little kind of like dance with Zen Center. I'm trying to think. So around the time that Richard Baker was like, sort of kicked out of Zen Center, I went back for various things.
Well, I'd say he resigned.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Ran into an impasse. Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate clarification. Yeah. I'm sorry. I apologize if that was rash.
Well, no, I mean, people see it both ways. I see it as an impasse. He wasn't willing to accept the sort of conditions that were going to be he was going to have to live under if he continued. Mm-hmm. And, it was the imperial period. And, he's still going strong, especially in Germany. That's really going well. And anyway.
So around that time, I was in contact with people at Zen Center. I went to various meetings.
Oh, goodness.
Like Thich Nhat Hanh came and tried to do some kind of reconciliation, and I was invited to that. And so I still had some peripheral contact, but I don't really know how it got all, how it actually played out. When Norman Fisher you went to that thing at the Shadows, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I got invited to that. I had no idea why I got invited to that, but I was. Oh. Even though I wasn't involved in Zen Center for a number of years.
Well, that was for people who had been involved with Richard Baker for a number of years. That wasn't for Zen Center people per se. It was like what Thich Nhat Hanh wanted reconciliation. He really believed that was possible, and he asked me he thought I could spearhead the reconciliation, and I was close with Dick and with Zen Center, but I didn't think that was going to happen, and I didn't think it was necessarily good,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was I was not. I told him pretty much that.
So then, Kendra, my daughter.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Kendra, how'd you get a daughter?
Mary Kunoff.
Child. Oh, I forgot.
Kendra.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, right.
And Kendra went down to Tassajara when she was about 20 as an actual student.
Yeah.
And so then Linda and I could go down as that really cool thing called Parents of a Student. And so then I got to go back to Tassajara a little bit. That was fun.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat.
Wait
a minute. Let's go back to the Shadows.
Yeah, sure.
What did you think of that event?
Let's see. What to say? I enjoyed the thing thoroughly.
Yeah. It went on a couple of days.
At least 2, if not a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, and
it was in Nicasio.
Yeah, I thought it was such a synchronistic name for an event like that, the Shadows.
No kidding. No kidding.
So it was really the first Zen Center reunion I'd had since I left Zen Center. So in a way, that's kind of what it was for me. getting to see a whole bunch of people I hadn't seen for many years. And the breakout groups are all really rich. And I don't think I had any investment whatsoever in any outcome. So, which is actually the story of my sort of life in Zen too. I never really had any investment in outcome. I just, I did it because it seemed to be really the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so and then it was kind of odd because I had a really bad car accident my way there. When I was taking the turnoff for Lucas Valley Road. I don't know if you remember what that's like, but there's a long kind of entryway along the right side of the freeway.
Yeah, I remember it. I'm with you. Yes, I'm there.
It's an exit only. So I'm just going down the exit only, and all of a sudden this car just pulls right into that lane, and I just plow into it. It's a solid line, so they weren't supposed to be doing that, and they clearly didn't look. And my car was totaled. And I got kind of bruised up. I called my brother in Fairfax, and he came and drove me to the shadows.
Wow! All right, who got the ticket?
Oh, not me. No, I was totally in the right.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to see if I wanted to see what happened. You don't remember what happened? I mean,
what do you mean?
What did their insurance cover your?
He uninsured, yeah. No, uninsured.
Oh.
Yeah. The CHP came and, my car was towed off to, I don't even know where it got towed off to actually. And so that's how I arrived at the shadow. So I was late.
Okay.
I missed all the orientation and everything that kind of set the stage for the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, I just remember it was so great to see people. I remember, I was particularly happy to see Lucy Bennett, actually. I hadn't seen her for a long time, and it was really special. She and I were able to have a walk on our own and catch up, and that was
wonderful.
That was great.
Wonderful.
And I remember some of us stayed up late one night, and you were there, just kind of, carrying on, carousing and catching up and enjoying each other's company. Probably someone found a bottle of wine or something to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Neat. What year was that? Do you remember?
No, I don't. No.
I don't either. I can't. I mean, I don't even know what decade it was. It was 80s or 90s.
well, when was Norman the abbot? That would be the way to figure it out.
Oh, well, abbot. He was abbot. Co-abbot, right, with Mel and
so that would that
Reb.
The second. Oh, Mel, Reb, and Norman all together.
Yeah. Look, that's all. I'm not sure. Maybe around 19. Well, couldn't have been 88 to 92. I think it was 93.
No.
90.
That late?
No. Oh, before
That's
I went.
A decade after. So
it was later. All right, I went to Japan in 88. You think it could have been 87?
Yeah. I think it's before you went to Japan.
Yeah. All right. I'd say 86, 87. Huh. It was very positive. Everybody felt really good about it.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely felt good about it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think I could imagine some people not feeling that great about it, feeling like basically that didn't accomplish anything. I could imagine there might be some people that felt that way.
Yeah.
I won't mention any names, but some people.
Well, actually, my observation was those of us who were close with Dick, like Arnie, me, and some of us, we felt that people were too hopeful and had too positive a response. And, we all like Dick, but he's still Dick. And, he's not going to change who he is further. But, people kept, he'd apologize, then, that wouldn't be good enough. And he could never quite apologize enough, or, you know what I mean? And
Sure.
so I felt it was good for the moment. I didn't feel like anything was going to change, so to speak, afterwards.
Right.
And I thought what he was doing elsewhere was good, and just keep that up. And Zen Center, but to me, what happened was, like I said, it was the imperial period, both with Suzuki and him. But Suzuki's, of course, his way of leading was to very passive, and but he and Dick both empowered other people, and so he created an organization that was strong, and it wouldn't put up with him after a while.
Right.
So I thought that was sort of positive.
Yeah.
I don't tell him that. He doesn't. I think he's finally really over it. And he's thinking about other things.
He retired, right? So what's that mean?
He's not retired.
I see. I thought he actually went through some kind of I don't know what. Yeah.
No,
Sorry. You know best.
Yeah. No, he has retired, but then it was just a meaningless word.
Got it.
Basically, he's gonna continue having being the primary influence on Dharma Sangha until he can't anymore through debilitation or whatever. He's like, good Lord, how old is he now? 80. Let's see. He's 86 or 87.
Well.
And but he's just very happy with especially Nicole Baden, who is becoming. I mean, he's given transmission to a number of people, but Nicole Baden is the abbot of maybe she's already got it. Or he's assigning her the abbot of both German Dharma Sangha and American Dharma Sangha, and she is great.
Good. You interviewed her, right, for your podcast?
Yeah, we did. It's a great podcast.
Yeah, I want to listen to that.
Oh,
yeah.
She's cool. I really like her. Yeah. And I'm working right now. I'm going through a history of Dharma Sangha, a little in-house publication, and I have to write something for it. Horrors. But anyway, yeah, I think they're doing pretty good.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
And his health is good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, what does he say? He says, well, it's same thing a lot of people I've heard say is they feel good, they feel young, but their bodies sort of, it's shifting, getting into low gears, and it's becoming less. What would you say? I wish I could remember how it was said. It was like their body's breaking down, but they feel good. He's doing pretty good. There's nothing in particular wrong with him right now that I know of.
I'm tempted to ask how your body is doing.
It's all right. I swim and walk and do yoga I don't play tennis. I mean, I stopped playing tennis about 3 years ago. It's just but if I could, I would do nothing but swim. Actually, I could, but I think walking's good. It's all good. I'm not as spry as I used to be. I definitely see that, and I get tired easier. But it's all right.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah.
Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
pretty obviously you're doing good.
Yeah, but I got more aches and pains, and I can't get up the mountain as well as I used to get up the mountain. And I'm starting to see, the I don't know, a certain possibly coming to the end of being able to be quite as active as I am.
Yeah. I think you got to watch out about over exerting your body as you get older in ways that might bring you. Well, George Wheelwright, let's say, who we got Green Gulch Farm from. I was walking with him down in the fields once, and he was in his early 80s, and he did high mountain skiing up into 80 years old, dropped by a helicopter at the top of a mountain with a group of people. And he told me, he said, it's all the pain. And, his body was giving him a lot of trouble. And I think swimming, which I never was interested in before, I think swimming is the best thing as you really get older. A lot of people get knee problems. I noticed one of the most difficult. I don't have that, but I can see, every little thing in my knees. I think, gotta watch out for that. I go up and down stairs a lot. That's good. Anyway, yeah. So, when did you and Linda get together?
It was about 1981, 82-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And we met through Meg Goller.
Aha! Again.
So, yeah, again.
Yeah.
Meg and I went off on a bird watching day, a day of birdie watching. And we came back, and she said, I'm going to a party just down the street from you. You want to come? I said, yeah, sure. And that's where I met Linda, at her house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Meg's in Switzerland. I think she's near Geneva. Married?
No, she's in south of France.
She's in south of France. She was in Switzerland a long time.
Yeah.
And now she's in the south of France. You're right.
Yeah. And she came to the States, and she lived right up the road from where we live now in Grass Valley.
No kidding.
Yeah. And she moved back to France just about the time we moved up here, which was really too bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
She got married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were at her wedding, actually. A small, very, very small event in Linda and Kaz's backyard. Very small event. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's really nice.
So now they just had a bunch of fires really close to them in France, actually, because Europe is really burning right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I met Linda. Yeah. So I went to this party, and I just kind of like immediately fell for this woman, and called her up right away and said, "Can we get together?" And she said, "Well, no, actually, because I'm in a relationship." I said, "Okay, call me when it's over."
That is terrific.
So she did. She called me a year later. And,
wow.
And we started seeing each other. But
wow.
we saw each other throughout that year, because Meg was seeing this guy, Alain, I think that's how you say it, Alain, this Frenchman. And so, I don't know, somehow or other, we would go to parties at Meg and Alain's house, or sometimes Meg and I don't know, and Linda, we'd go, I don't know. Anyway, I would bump into Linda throughout that year through events that related to Meg. And so it wasn't totally like I hadn't seen her for a year. We'd actually seen each other. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that's worked out. And you got married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so many people don't get married in America.
Well, we didn't for a very long time, because what was the point, just like, what was the point? There really wasn't any point. But when I came down with lymphoma, it felt like the thing to do, kind of.
Oh.
Logistically, it just felt like it was good to, get married. I don't want to just say logistically. That makes it sound a little sterile. But everything kind of surrounding, having, a life-threatening illness, kind of, you just shift things a little bit and say, yeah, maybe it's good we get married. So.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, Katrinka and I lived together for 11 years before we got married. And we got married here on the beach.
Yeah, I've seen pictures.
Yeah, a Buddhist wedding. It was nice.
Very nice. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but Katrinka's a wedding planner. We had to get married eventually. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and now, the last place we were was the Shadows, and I don't think we've got a lot left to do, but you still haven't. I don't see your profession coming together yet.
So I left Zen Center. I went to undergraduate, then I got a master's in clinical psychology and went to work in community mental health. And interesting enough, my first job was just 2 blocks down the hill from 300 Page Street at a combination residential day treatment program for adults with severe psychiatric disorders.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think actually I used to come up and have lunch with people occasionally during that time. I mean, I did this little, like I said, this sort of dance with Zen Center. I mean, I was always sort of connected in some peripheral way, just usually by, friendships and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and I don't know, I worked there for almost a decade, and then I moved just up the hill to a place called Family Service Agency of San Francisco, and I worked in geriatric mental health for another decade. And then I retired a little bit on the early side, primarily for health reasons. After I went through my cancer treatment, Linda and I decided I shouldn't work full time. And so when I went back to work, I worked kind of part-time at the same agency, not anything really very big and important. When I went up to FSA first, I was a program supervisor for a day treatment program, and then I was a program...
SSA, remind me?
Yeah, F as in Family Service Agency.
Oh, right, FSA. All right, go on.
Yeah. And I was a program supervisor for a geriatric day treatment program, and then I was a program director for outpatient and day treatment program. And then I came down with lymphoma. I took a year off. When I came back, I just did some kind of minor part-time jobs. But then the director of all senior services left for another job, and she asked if I would cover the position temporarily while they tried to find someone to take the job, and I said I would. And in the course of trying to hire for that position, the executive director said basically at one point, thanks for, finding all these people, but actually I'd like you to do the job. And so at that time I said, well, I only do the job if I can do it 3 days a week. And he said, okay. And so I did that job for a couple of years, 3 days a week.
That's nice.
And it is because actually I took over maybe 2 full-time positions I did it in 3 days a week. So I was pretty good at it.
Good.
But then the agency just kept growing and getting bigger, and we got a bunch of grants that involved adding to my responsibilities to the point where I said, I don't think I can do this. And so I retired early, basically. And as I say, I only retired early because I had a wife who worked full time. So I retired.
What was she doing?
Linda's a doctor.
Oh.
Yeah, and she worked in a number of jobs. She worked in a very small community-based private practice in Berkeley, in a very poor neighborhood and very poor patients she worked with. And then she worked for Alameda County for a little bit. Then she worked for San Mateo County for a little bit. And then she went back and worked for Alameda County. So she always worked in county clinics, working with a very underserved population.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, both of you taking on pretty difficult jobs there.
Yeah. So I wanted to tell one story, though, about how I reconnected with Zen Center at one point. When the basin the Basin Complex fire. Do you remember that fire?
Yeah, that's the one where the Fire Monks book was written about.
That's it, exactly, yeah. And, of course, we all followed that fire extensively. So I had retired already. And for some reason, I hadn't really had any connection with Zen Center for a long time. But I think I must have just, because I can't remember who it called, but I must have called Leslie James, is all I can imagine, and said, can I come down and take some pictures? I was drawn to, photograph this, landscape, this burned landscape. And she said, yeah, come on down. So I went down there very soon after the road had been opened and photographed the area. And then I went back again in the spring to photograph the regeneration process. And that got me reconnected to Zen Center. And I started going down, usually once a summer, they would invite me to go down for a few days in exchange for taking pictures. And then they would use those pictures on the website and brochures and stuff like that. And so that was really cool. I really enjoyed that a lot, kind of reconnecting with Zen Center at that time. And again, primarily Tassajara, though at one point, someone asked me to go photograph Green Gulch Farm because they'd done a lot of work, as you probably know, in new buildings and stuff like that. So I did a bunch of photography for them too. But they never used those photographs. I was a little upset about that. Yeah. So that was sort of fun to reconnect again.
Yeah. Well, they've got a priest.
I like that.
They've got a priest there, Shindo David Hayes, who's a very serious photographer, and he might have had some leverage you didn't have. Or I don't know.
No. David and I met each other. Actually, we knew each other, and we did a joint show. I did a photo show at Zen Center of photographs of the fire, and then the three of us, Tova Green and David and I, also did a joint show also. So we know each other, and yes, I realized he was my main competition. A great guy, though.
Yeah. I get emails from him constantly now.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because he's working on Suzuki Roshi lectures. And so Peter Ford I said, Peter Ford is the managing director of Cuke Archives now.
Uh-huh.
And Wendy Piercing are working on them too. I just advise on them some, I'm doing other projects. But one thing I've taken on is editing the audio, which is different from what they're doing. But he is really doing a good job with it. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that
Well, I
he's very
saw.
exacting.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. Well, he's British, you know.
Yeah.
I saw that he and Ed Sadazon had just done a kind of a seminar or something.
Right.
On the newly discovered or something like that. Suzuki Roshi tapes or something.
Right. They found about 30 tapes that or some box or something. A number of them, some of them we had audio for, but most of them we didn't have audio for. Some of them we didn't even have transcripts for. So, they're all, Zen Center's been making a big deal out of that for like a year now, and which is good because it gets people interested in what Suzuki Roshi had to say, and in the archive. There's more real interest in archiving now, and it's because of the work at Zen Center than ever before, and it's because of the work of Shundo and Charlie Wilson. They have a business, Engage Wisdom. It's Zen Center hired them, So he's a priest for Zen Center, but he's also not really an employee. I mean, they hired Engage Wisdom. I don't know. I don't ask how that works out in the work he's doing now on Verbatim. It was mainly him and Peter just working on the Verbatim, and we do light edits too. I've been putting on What's New every day, the What's New blog for Cuke. I'm only putting excerpts of lectures from that group, and anyway, that's neat, and that's been really good. But they're moving to archive all Zen Center tapes. There's like 10,000 of them.
Amazing. How do you, after this many years, discover a lost box of tapes?
You got me, man. I thought we'd looked everywhere.
Wow. Where the heck? It'd be very, very fun to know just where that box was.
Yeah, I know. And there's been stuff lost too.
I can imagine.
Oh yeah. Well, I had an experience. I started putting together all the transcripts in about. I started that in about 93, right? And then getting all the audio there was, and getting the ones that didn't have transcripts, getting them transcribed, and I started that back in the 90s, and it's just never stopped. And then there was this big project Zen Center did, and Winger and I, he was in charge of that. We were quite involved together in all that, and Bill Redican came in, but it just keeps going. But Zen Center, will get involved in something like that, but then when the budget runs out, that's it.
Yeah.
So that was gone for a couple of years back at the turn of the century. But actually, Susan O'Connell, Susan O'Connell, who was president of Zen Center, she's the one that ran the interference to really get Zen Center interested in putting some real interest and focus on on serious archiving, but mainly Charlie's had spent a lot of time writing for grant proposals, So I don't know all of what they're doing. I can't do grant proposals, but they're doing a lot, and we're working with them.
Good.
And yeah, that's neat.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I sort of worry. I sort of worry that somehow Zen Center is not going to survive this COVID pandemic. Financially.
Oh well, we'll see.
I mean, you can't do anything. I mean, maybe the online business is booming. Maybe online classes and stuff like that is booming. But it seems like they had to find some way to, because Tassajara is wasn't it their largest source of income?
Very large source of income, and they couldn't get enough staff to run the guest season this summer, and almost had it, but at the last minute canceled it. And that I couldn't believe that. I went, what? It's unbelievable. But so many, COVID had just sort of broken things down. So we'll see what happens. Something will happen.
Good.
There's some really good people in there, really smart people. I think of Susan O'Connell as being the most capable person in terms of institutional survival. She's up there closer to a level like Richard Baker, who has done miracles with Dharma Sangha. Oh, God. Oh, what nerve that guy has. I mean, same thing he did with Zen Center, was getting Zen Center to buy things. There just was way beyond any possibility of doing it. And then what it did is the Zen Center came up to it and did it. And, anyway, yeah, but we'll see what happens. I mean, at a time when civilization is threatened, I'm not going to worry too much about it. So, David, does that bring us up to the present?
Oh, I have no idea. Seriously.
All right. Are you back?
I am.
Well, something's happening.
I don't know. Are there strange noises?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't know what kind of noises.
Wow.
I did walk a little bit. I did, actually. I did take a few steps.
Wow. I don't know.
What's it sound like? Oh.
Sounds like somebody else is on the line and moving around and doing things.
No, I did. I walked from the porch inside. Could that be it?
Oh, I don't know. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I think we've... is there anything you'd like to say in parting?
I'd like to say it's super great to talk to you. And it's really sad you don't live closer. I really appreciate your having a conversation with me. When I thought of this, talk coming up, I just felt a lot of gratitude for what you've done, for chronicling the history of Zen Center, doing these podcasts, doing all the interviews, getting all the information of all these people from the early days. And I just felt a lot of appreciation, just looking forward to talking to you like this.
Well, I appreciate your doing it. Yeah. And thank you. To me, it's funny. I'm really interested in people now you know, and the whole historical thing is like it's the way we can meet and say hello.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I it's funny, you know. I don't I don't want to be a person that reminisces a lot. I want to keep focusing on what's happening right now and what's new, and but it's my job now. It's my duty.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you're doing it.
Yeah.
And,
Well, thank you.
I think a lot of people. I'm hope. Well, I think a lot of people in the present are hopefully benefiting it for given all this vast amount of information you put together onto Cute.com. I'm hoping it benefits people, and whenever I have an opportunity, I put some link on Facebook to something interesting I found on Cute.com to keep people kind of plugged into that just that important part of history. Yeah.
Well. Well, thank you. There's like two aspects to the work. There's the Suzuki Roshi lecture archive, right? And we don't try to have a good presentation as much as a thorough presentation, you know, every edited version, every audio version, everything he said, and that we could find. And so there's people who appreciate that, but and some people think of that as what I'm doing or what Cuke Archives is about, but the oral history, the written history of the connecting with people, telling the story of people and having people come on and seeing what they're doing right now. That's I think that's a bigger part of it in a way, and a lot of people say that is more inspiring to them than the lectures. Not that the lectures aren't inspiring and informative. I like working with the lectures, you know, every day something. And I don't really think about it, you know, but I'm just constantly going, oh, wow, that's a good point. Or the opposite, or like, oh, well, why is he talking about this? Or I'll say, God, his English is getting worse. I get mad at him because his English keeps not improving, you know.
It's also so you're listening to some of those old lectures or reading the transcripts, and then you read like the questions, you know, student asks some question, and you go like, oh my God, how did he ever like put up with these people? You know, I mean, everyone was so naive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, all of us were so naive.
Yeah. I know life is embarrassing, especially if you look at the past, of your own past. It can be anyway. Well, thank you, David. Say hi to Linda. Oh, hey, wait.
Absolutely.
We didn't even touch on Adyashanti.
Oh, that's going to have to be another talk.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, I think I should just say
we didn't find out how Kendra and the grandkids were doing either, right?
Kendra, I hear about Kendra. Some, you know, like we're friends on Facebook, and I hear about her from Mary, and
great.
You know, I followed somewhat what she's doing. I really don't know what she's doing right now, but you did mention Gangaji, who incidentally lived in Bolinas, and
right.
and Adyashanti. I've heard Adyashanti half dozen times. Really like him.
Yeah.
And you all were very close with Adyashanti for a number of years, and probably know Steve Bodian and some of the other people in that realm.
Yeah, of course. Steve Bodian was at my first practice period.
Oh yeah.
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 But and of course then John, another kind of successor of Adyashanti, who's at Zen Center. Gosh darn it! Oh, I can't remember his name. You would know him.
Oh, send me the email to remind me, because right now it's
Okay.
not coming. I might not know. Anyway, how's Adyashanti doing right now?
So he's taken a break from teaching. He might have had some health issues himself, and he just felt that it was just So he's taken some break. I think he plans to come back, and his wife Mukti has kind of taken over.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Anyway, great talking with you, and
It was great talking to David.
And I'm sure we'll continue being in touch. And
Great.
Okay, and
Okay.
I'll let you know when this goes up. Might not be for a month.
It's okay. I'm not in a rush.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. So thank you very much, David Silva. Really enjoyed talking with you. I look forward to hiking in the Sierras with you. That'd be good. Yeah. However, I don't know if I'll ever get back on that side of the world. We'll see. Say, I did a Zoom call with somebody who's going to make it a podcast. Simplicity Zen. Really interesting guy, Barry Crawford. SimplicityZen.com, I think. I'm not referring to it. And, we had a little discussion. And actually, I did it with him. And then I told him, I've been recording this. I said, I was recording before you answered. And I said, I'm still recording. And I said, all this stuff you just said, because we kept talking after we were through with the podcast. We went over 2 hours. And we just kept talking, and I asked him all sorts of stuff. And I said, hey, man, I forgot I was recording. I didn't turn it off. That's a good podcast. And so he'll be up here in a month or so. I've got that saved here. But one thing he said to me, this really made me think, it made me uncomfortable, a little depressing. I think I'm going to have a couple of not caps, well, I don't know, maybe they're called caps, crowns removed, fairly new crowns, because they got cavities in them. Anyway, I'm going to be talking to my dentist about that. I went to other dentists, real high-tech places here to make sure I knew, and got a X-ray to show her. Boy, I can't afford to do it again. I mean, have to go rob a bank or something. But she'll have to figure it out. She's a very good, honest person. We'll have to figure something out so it doesn't hurt. But anyway, that's not what worried me. What worried me was thinking about, he says right at the first, he says, I think he just puts his on Facebook. He says, please subscribe and, I don't know, share, like, whatever. I told him, I can't do that. I never do that. I never do anything like that. I don't want to promote anything at all. And he said, well, then other people won't learn about it. And, if you have people that are following you, if you have more than Facebook notices it or YouTube notices it, and then they start sending it out, and it sort of can grow. And I thought, well, if people are interested, they'll come, but that's not true. So I'm sort of conflicted about it. But anyway, I was talking to, I have an assistant that came today to help because my new album, our new album, Bali Yuga Zero, it's called, went online today. So if you go to baliyuga.com, you can access it. Actually, the best thing to do is when you go to baliyuga.com, it actually winds up on the homepage of diffusermusic.com, my music website. And Bali Yuga is just our band here in Bali. It's just a recording band, studio band. And I have artist pages on, Spotify and Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube. And just hit one of those and you can go to it and hear Zero. Anyway, I think it's pretty cool. So, I should ask people to share and like that. I should ask people to share and like and follow and subscribe and all that stuff for the various venues this goes on. And I should ask people to donate because, we just barely get by. You know what we get by, is just little coins we happen to see in the gutter, picking them up. And, yes, our very kind donors and people who subscribe on PayPal or send little checks. That really helps because, I don't have a paid job. And let me tell you, publishing is pro bono, almost. It's a nominal pay, unless you get something pretty big. But, all right, that's enough of that. You see what I have to say. I think I will probably figure out some, like at the beginning of these things, I've got it all worked out, say the same thing every time. I'll figure out something like that. And I can't be apologizing every time I say it. People don't like apologies. They want you to be affirmative. Say, I'm going to promote it and tough luck if you don't like it or something like that. Okay. This has been a Kook Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Kook Audio and Kook Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Dog and Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.